And it came to pass in the morning that his spirit was troubled. This bugged him, that whatever dream it was he had. And he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt and all the wise men thereof. And Pharaoh told him his dream, but there was none that could interpret them unto Pharaoh. Nobody could interpret these dreams that Pharaoh, or this dream that Pharaoh had. Then spake the chief butler unto Pharaoh, saying, I do remember my faults this day. Oh my gosh, you know what? I screwed up big time. Pharaoh was wroth with his servants. You were ticked off with us once, and put me and ward in the captain of the guard's house, both me and the chief baker. The captain of the guard happened to be Joseph. And we dreamed a dream, and one night, I and he, we dreamed each man according to the interpretation of his dream. And there was there with us a young man, an Hebrew servant to the captain of the guard. I'm sorry. Joseph was the servant to the captain of the guard. And we told him, and he interpreted to us our dreams. To each man according to his dream he did interpret. And it came to pass as he interpreted to us, so it was. Me he restored unto mine office, and him, the other guy, he hanged. Joseph told him the interpretation of the dream, and it came to pass. Pharaoh hanged one, and Pharaoh kept the other, and this, the one he kept, is the one that's relating the story to Pharaoh. Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him hastily out of the dungeon. And Joseph said, hey, people should be past caring what someone looks like, so he just went to Pharaoh the way he was already dressed. No, he went to Pharaoh the way he already looked with his long beard. No, Pharaoh, the Egyptians didn't like facial hair. They were not into it at all. They liked a certain look. Pharaoh is king of Egypt. He calls for Joseph. Now the Hebrews were into facial hair, letting your beard grow long, looking a certain way and all this. But Joseph now is being called before Pharaoh. And what does it say Joseph did? Even though Pharaoh said, get him quick, I want him right away. He shaved himself and changed his raiment, his clothing, and came in unto Pharaoh. This is a great lesson in the Word. Joseph is a man of God. Joseph has the Spirit of God upon him, but he's going to present himself before the head of state, before the president, so to speak, before the king of Egypt, Pharaoh. And he changes how he looks. We have people that say things today like, well, it shouldn't matter how I look. Well, it does. Whether it should or not is not an issue. It does. Right here in Genesis. Great lesson. So learn. If you're going to present yourself in front of a businessman who has, the opportunity to benefit your life or to do something good for you and your family, then you should adjust yourself in that regard. If you're going to present yourself as someone who's very casual, then you should adjust your clothing to be more casual. Great learning here for your presentation. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I have dreamed a dream, and there is none that can interpret it, and I have heard say of thee that thou canst understand a dream to interpret it. And Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, yes, sir, I'm your man, I can do her. No. Joseph said, it is not in me. God shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace. How did Joseph know it would be an answer of peace? God had already told him, part of it. God had already told him it's going to be an answer of peace, word of knowledge. This is one of the manifestations of the Spirit. God had already told him it's going to be an answer of peace. But Joseph doesn't make the big mistake that some people make, going on the ego trip. Oh, it's all about me and what I know and what I can do. No. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, in my dream, behold, I stood upon the bank of the river, and behold, there came up out of the river 7 kine, these are cattle, fat-fleshed and well-favored, and they fed in a meadow. And behold, 7 other kine came up after them, poor and very ill-favored, and lean-fleshed, such as I never saw in all the land of Egypt for badness. These were horrible-looking cattle. And the lean and the ill-favored kind did eat up the first 7 fat kine. This is unusual. Cattle don't usually eat cattle. Of course, now, in some countries, including our own, in some of these corporate farms, diseased cows are ground up and fed to healthy cows. And we wonder why certain things are not so good in our country. It's not all about pigs. There are things that they do to pigs and cattle. Really, I'm just thinking of this now because some people don't want to eat pork. If you don't want pork, you really don't want beef. I mean, you don't want. What can you eat? If you're not growing it yourself, you better bless that food and go ahead and eat. Someone used to say, you better bless that mess. Because whether it's pigs or cows or chickens or fruit, here's a great lesson. As much as possible, eat the fruit and food that's grown in the area that you live in. And the reason for that is not so much, I thought for years it was just because, I don't know what I thought. I thought it was because things grown in your environment, because you live in that environment, somehow the land and the atmosphere and whatever, the food would be better for you there. I didn't understand why. I was taught this, but I didn't know why. This finally registered for me when I was in a bank I think it was in California. I was in California. I was in a bank area waiting to make a deposit. And there was an area where only commercial people sat. They closed off a certain area if you had a commercial account. So some guy comes in who has this trucking and shipping firm to make a deposit. So I started a conversation. I asked him about it. I said, well, what do you ship? He said, oh, bananas. I said, oh, bananas. That's great. So where do you get the bananas? Oh, we get them from, and he mentioned some foreign country. And I said, wow. So you get them there, and they get here pretty quick, huh? He goes, oh, no, it takes a while to get them here. I said, really? Well, how do they stay fresh? Well, there's this thing they do, they irradiate them with some kind of rays that keep them fresh. I said, what? Yeah, it's some kind of radiation that keeps them from spoiling as fast. So he goes, oh yeah, those bananas that get here have been picked for at least, and he mentioned the period of time, and it shocked me to know how long it had been that these bananas were picked before they ever get to the grocery store. And this doesn't make any difference whether these bananas show up in Publix or in Whole Foods or in Central Market, which is a health food section of H-E-B food stores. Makes no difference. So just because we think we're buying health food because we buy it at a health food store, if they were brought in from outside of this country, they were irradiated. Now, I'm not sure, some of you may know, whether they do that even if it's grown in this country and still has to be shipped across country. If they're flown, it could happen that same day, so maybe it's different if it's flown. Some of you know more about this, I'm sure, than I do, and could tweet me or email me or something and let me know, what you know about it. But I know someone who was very interested in health in California who would only go to farmers markets in the area. He really wouldn't, going to Whole Foods, he would only buy dry things there, and I just never understood all that. I didn't understand why. I think occasionally he'd buy fruit, but it was very rare. He would always look for fruit that was in the U.S., grown in the U.S., and preferably he'd go to farmers markets. And now I really understand why. Because it's been irradiated. Now, I don't know what that does to food, but I'm sure it does something. Sticking food under radiation cannot be what God intended.